you diehards who've decided to come after lunch. I decided this afternoon, if you don't mind, I'm going to take the full 40 minutes. So I'll stop at 10 to 3. And if I haven't stopped, you raise your hand. So thank you for coming. So I'm a child and adult and family psychotherapist, and I specialize in work with babies, and I've published some books on work with babies. And I'm going to do something unusual, which is I'm going to speak in identification with the premature infant, who can only non-verbally tell you what the matter is. And I'm also going to speak as the premature infant's advocate, and to help you think how very seriously we have to take those early days and weeks and months, because they've been researched as having a huge impact on the premature infant's capacity to stay alive. And also, the research now suggests that the premature infant's life in the neo-intensive care unit tells the tale of the child's entire life. So I'm now going to begin interlacing the premature infant's nonverbal communication, which I've put into words, and my own comments as the advocate. Oh, I thought he was doing that. Are you not doing that? No, I can do it. I'll get rid of this. If I know how to just scroll. Okay.
I can help you
Good.
if you want. Oh yeah, that's all.
There we go.
You can follow like this.
I think I can manage.
Okay.
Thank you.
If not, I'm here.
Okay. Speaking in identification with the premature infant. So as an infant, I'm born to be loved and to be loving. And the problem occurs now because I've been born prematurely. And do you know that of the premature infants living in the NICU, 20% of them experience autistic features and other psychopathologies later in life? Why is this? How can you create a community of concern between the NICU team and the parents to help me avoid developing psychopathological defenses that are going to impede my capacity for intimate, loving relationships with family and friends throughout my life? And how can you help me avoid using defenses which hinder my capacity to bear the frustration of learning? So if I was born for love, to love and be loved, is there a problem? Oh, the microphone. You can see I've got an F in technical equipment. Psychotherapists are known for that, I have to tell you. So if I was born for love and to be loved, then it's necessary to transform the NICU to make my experience more explicitly an experience which promotes love, a trustworthy, secure attachment to my parents, and a sense of safety. And my sense of safety is going to be greater throughout life if you, through this stay, if you can do everything possible to assist my parents in staying with me and understanding me. And also, I will feel much safer if while I'm in the hospital, I have just a few key nurses who intimately get to know how I am with my parents and how my parents are with me. And then as the advocate, well, a severely premature infant requires that the parents be present and as responsive as possible to what their baby needs. So it's been researched about how helpful it is to encourage and teach parents to be involved physically in as many procedures that you can safely teach them. And this includes feeding, changing, monitoring the baby, massaging the baby, singing to the baby, doing whatever they feel willing and able to do. And the more the parents feel part of the NICU team, touching, feeding, massaging, observing, and understanding their baby, as well as assisting their baby to live, the more intimately connected to their baby they will be. And as an aside, we know that if you have the fathers and the mothers be physically, skin to skin, in touch with their baby, it increases the oxytocin, both in the fathers and in the mothers, and the fathers develop many more of the caring capacities that mothers have. So we need to really get the fathers engaged in this kangaroo pouch and this touching and holding and singing and so on. They change. From the beginning of the premature infant's birth, the parents benefit by being able to observe their infant's particular strengths as well as their infant's difficulties. So one of the best pediatric services that I know is the Italian hospital in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where there's a child psychoanalyst and psychiatrist who teaches the whole pediatric team the big method of infant observation. So I told you this morning, the pediatric team members learn to observe minute details of the reciprocal interaction between the parent and the infant and the clinician, and they try to assess what's promoting the infant's development and what aspects of the parent-infant clinical interaction needs to be modified to provide good containment of the participants' feelings. So we really need to teach infant observation to everyone. And my idea, I'm off the script now, my idea is that we offer a course of observing a live baby week to week on a video to all university students and parents before their parents. And I'm starting this in China with 80 people now. I've done the first group of 40, and it really does change their capacity to get in touch with maternal and paternal capacities. Before their parents, when they're doctors, they understand reciprocal relationships. So I think it's only, I'm back to the script, only through learning to observe the essential, minute aspects of clinician-parent-infant reciprocal interaction can the clinicians foster the parent's capacity to attune to a less responsive, less healthy, less physically integrated infant. And the problem is, as you know, the preterm infant easily overreacts to environmental inputs and is more easily stressed and overstimulated and requires much more finely tuned structuring and techniques. And the parents need to discover, as they interact with their infant, how they get easily disorganized. So there's some YouTube videos, Beatrice Beebe, Ruth Feldman, and they enable the clinicians to help parents to attentively observe their reciprocal relationships with their baby. And there's some clinician interventions, which include talking directly to the baby. The baby feels the emotion as they talk motherese about the baby's experience, and talking to the parent in identification with the baby about what's observed and what one's doing with the baby or what one's about to do with the baby. And that can create a kind of beneficial, intimate, trustworthy relationship between the infant, the parents, and the clinician. And Salmonson has researched this. So for example, the observing adult in identification with the baby can say, "Oh, mommy, how nice you looked at me and talked to me. See, I like that." Or, "Oh, mommy, I can't take any more milk now. I'm too tired." So one of the problems is The parents can become hyperactive when the infant averts his gaze. And also the premature infant can sleep a lot, and parents can become intrusive when the infant doesn't give adequate messages to the parent. And for this reason, the mother and father need help in observing, identifying with the baby's experience, and trying to make sense of the baby's behavior. And this helps the parents to slow down. And then they can follow the baby, which is research is being more effective than intruding upon the baby. So the infant's more able to maintain eye contact with the mother or father rather than avoiding eye contact because they're being attuned to. Daniel Stern. The other thing it's also important is to involve both the father and the mother. Fathers have been so neglected. They need to create, and I'm also referring, if it's a gay couple, to the partner, but they need to be a couple, a cradle for each other's emotional experience. We need to encourage them both to deeply listen to how the other feels. And focusing on helping the mother and father bear each other's emotions will assist them in being empathic and deeply responsive to their premature infant's experience. Well, this is the hard one. Most of the parents and relatives, or one of the parents and relatives, needs to stay present with the premature baby as much as humanly possible. Because the memory of how you're being cared for is laid down for life. So if you're not responded to, you're going to have insecure, avoidant, and dysregulated attachment unless it's ameliorated. So this means assisting the parent on the script to create a community of concern around them, to enable them to facilitate consistent, responsive, and attuned care for the infant. And they need a lot of support to note progress for the baby and help each other bear disappointment when they don't see it. I think the app is wonderful that we heard about this morning because they can look at steps together and note them. There's a neuropsychiatrist, Romana Negri, from Milano. She wrote the book, The Newborn Baby in the Intensive Care Unit. And she says it's very useful for the clinician to regularly meet the parents beside the premature baby in the incubator. And from the first day, she helps them to observe and meets them they know when she's coming the next week. And her task is to promote the parents' deep identification with their baby. She also has a task of being responsive to the feelings the parents bring, and this means not being rushed. She's trained in the big observation methods with Martha Harris, and she supports the parents to observe their baby, talk to their baby, and express to her and to each other their feelings of love and guilt and fear of loving their baby because of anxiety about the baby dying, and grief about not having their idealized baby who exists in the womb, anger when they feel things don't go right, and joy when they see signs of interest. And being able to engage in breastfeeding is one of those times when they get very pleased. So the clinician's emotional receptivity is really crucial. And only this deep receptivity to the parents allows acceptance rather than obliteration of the tragic aspects of the premature born infant. And if the clinician doesn't receive their feelings and provides flat containment, it's going to block the parents' work of grieving the fact that their premature baby is not in their arms, not at home, but in the incubator. So I've labeled these 3 types of containment. Flat containment, simply offering reassurance, saying everything's going to be okay, saying the parents shouldn't be so worried, or being very intellectual, in describing the infant's condition rather than empathic to the parents' feelings as they bear the medical information and learn how to participate in their baby's care. But most importantly, one needs not to ignore the parents' intuition of what they feel their baby feels and is communicating. And then there's convex containment. So this is when they're implied in the tone of voice that the mother's being too tearful, too anxious, criticizing her, implied in the tone of voice for just seeing the negative aspects of the baby's development. And it could also include conveying a sense of being too rushed. The worst thing doctors have is being too rushed, I'm afraid. And I know why they're too rushed, but it's terrible being a recipient. Too reassuring, too preacher-like, too controlling, rather than wondering, observing, and understanding in collaboration with the parents. And we don't want to convey catastrophic possibilities because it pressures the parents to have too many worries about what go wrong for the baby. And then there's concave containment. So this is a kind of receptivity of sensitively observing the interaction between the parents and their premature baby and discussing with them, what do they see as signs of hopeful engagement between the infant and themselves, and bearing the parents' feelings about having a baby being unwell, undeveloped, unable to breastfeed, damaged. So we need to be receptive and accepting of the parents' fear of attachment because the baby might die. This is one of the biggest obstacles. Or their dislike of the baby because the baby's not normal and never will be. Or the parents' extreme disappointment and grief because the baby's not being able to held and fed normally, but it's in the NICU. I think very often, as you know, parents are very traumatized by the birth of a premature infant or premature twin siblings. So parents have indicated that they're extremely grateful for the support at this very vulnerable time, and they found it very helpful to observe the baby with the doctor and to be able to share both their and the doctor's empathic observations. And one parent said, in particular, encouraging me to touch my baby is still one of the most supporting factors and metaphors for me, because when my son seemed just lost, I feel and felt there were and are holes through which I can reach him. So encourage touch. And another parent said, having someone to help me create a space for my son, to think about him, to fantasize about our relationship was so very helpful. And kangaroo care has many long-term physiological, cognitive, and emotional benefits researched. And I feel so privileged to be able to bond so much more quickly through holding my baby skin to skin. You see that baby gripping for dear life. So enlisting the parents' capacity and willingness to greet their infant with helpful rhythms of reciprocity promotes the best long-term emotional, physical, cognitive development of the infant. So it's extremely important that first-time parents need encouragement to develop their inner maternal feelings and paternal feelings. And when shocked by a sudden painful emergency of a premature birth, it can be very hard for the mother to share loving, attuned responsiveness to her premature baby. But we know it's that which keeps the baby alive. So the medical equipment can tell you about my heart rhythm, my breathing, as well as all my vital signs. But I can't speak, so I have to tell you how I'm feeling through my changing bodily movements, my hands, my facial gestures, and my different cries. And sometimes I have so many tubes in me that I can't cry. So please learn to look at my facial expressions of comfort and discomfort, and observe my different hand and finger movements and my leg showing relaxation or discomfort. And try to understand what my gestures and movements and cries are signaling to me in particular. I am a unique baby, like no other baby, and I need you to understand my feelings, my distinct personality, which is reflected in my nonverbal signals in my face and my body, and respond to them as best you can. So a mother talks to a baby in a high-pitched melodic prosody, motherese, and she recognizes her baby has a mind. So please, mommy, daddy, and nurses, speak to me in whatever state I exist. It's going to help me to fight to stay alive. So it's that emotional link between the parents and the baby, which is one of the most vital ways to ensure that at that moment when death is beckoning, the baby holds on to this link with their parents. Here's some of the signals. My hands. So even if I'm not crying, I can be deeply distressed and not use my hands at all. They're just flaccid. But when I start fighting to live, I clench my fingers tightly as I try to hold myself together, both emotionally and physically. That's a sign of life. And I do this when I'm frightened and I don't feel I can trust that essential mother caregiver to protect me and help me feel safe and secure. And my hands are so important to me as self-protective ways of taking care of myself. And I use them to hold on to things, but I also use them to put my thumb in my mouth or reach for you to be with me. And please do not ever cover my hands unless you absolutely have to. I wrote to the baby firm that makes these coverings for children's hands because they don't realize this is their weapon to stay alive. So when my fingers are firmly extended, I'm panicked and in pain, and I need rescuing through your talking to me and soothing me with your hands touching me through the incubator. And if my arm is hard and unbent in the air, again, I'm panicked or in pain, and please talk to me and soothe me physically. And waving my arms and kicking my legs are also ways I try to evacuate stress or hold myself together and physically to survive unpleasant, emotional, painful sensations. And remember, I used to swim around in my mommy's womb when I felt uncomfortable. And I'm also waving as a way of signaling for someone to help me with my distress of being alone, just simply being alone with whatever I'm feeling. And I need your loving voice and your holding and understanding to comfort me when I'm startled about all that is going on around and within me. Uh-oh. Okay. Haven't failed. Almost. Oh no, it's gone away. So the eyes wide open, showing panic or wonder about what in the world is happening. See, these babies aren't crying for care, but a mother would be talking to them, noticing that their eyes were like that. And so we need to get a community of concern around them so that they're not left with this panic. When I have too many tubes to cry, look at my eyes and limbs and share what you feel when you look at me. When I'm listless, please still soothingly talk to me or sing to me. And also when I cry, if you frequently ignore my cries and do not come to me when I cry, I lose basic trust in a good mother, a good caregiver, and this is dangerous for my emotional and physical well-being. And if my cries become unbearable, I become very anxious and I stop crying. I dissociate, I go to sleep. Of course, sleeping can be a defense of the anxiety of being alone, but sometimes I'm feeling abandoned and neglected and too disturbed by all the intrusions and excess stimuli. And then I turn away from my mother and father and everything, and I turn away from the world as though it isn't a good place for me to be. And the need to avoid everyone out of anxiety can continue later in my life if you don't notice and sensitively respond to my nonverbal signals and do not hold and talk to me. I need you to understand what I'm communicating to you. Do not ignore my feelings. Love me, hold me, touch me. Let us get to know one another so we can love each other more. I'm born to have loving, responsive, and protective parents who understand my nonverbal communication to them, not just crying. So when the premature infant has developed basic trust and secure attachment with the parents, then the infant can accept some discomfort and hunger and physical pain. The need for emotional comfort can be bearable for a few minutes of crying, but not until basic trust is established internally. When there's basic trust, the baby's crying changes. It has a particular characteristic which suggests that the baby's crying with some memory that caregivers come when he's crying. It's almost like a protest cry. And knowing there's someone who will come makes a baby feel the difficult moment. It's not quite so frightening. Babies need to be able to cry a little in that time to know that they're powerful with their cry. Off text, there's a book by Dunstan who talks about how you can differentiate. There are 37 different kinds of cries at least, and she's very clear, she's a musician, about how you can tell the meaning. It's like baby language, very clear sounds. So try to disentangle the different kinds of cry and what the baby's trying to communicate. And that means sometimes the parent has to work out what it is the infant needs and wants, because the infant's not always going to know what the matter is. But the cry of a trusting infant often sounds like a protest, as I said, for someone not coming. And it's so different from those cries I hear in the airplane of completely panicked, high-pitched crying, which means having a reddened face and rapidly flailing arms and kicking legs and can't be comforted. But this cry is the baby's vital genetic signal that helps regulate the caregiver-infant interaction, and it promotes the infant's physical and emotional survival. So each specific type of baby's crying requires a different, attuned caregiver's response for the infant to avoid feeling despair. I mean, we all know this, that being in the NICU is a very critical period in which the premature infant is creating an internal representation, a memory that never disappears of what the caregiving world is like. They have a photographic memory inside, researched, and regular failures to respond in an attuned way to a premature baby's cries, which convey different meanings, can lead throughout life to insecure attachments, avoidant attachments, dysregulated attachments, characterized by anxiety. And Porges, in Polyvagal Theory book, states that ignoring a premature baby's cries can lead to a harmful impact on the development of a not yet fully developed neural connections that comprise the vagus nerve. So when disrupted by too many unmet cries, the vagus nerve leads to dysregulation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for regulating various voluntary body functions, including heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, and the immune response for infection. This is what I was saying this morning when Heather was speaking about, let's look at the psychological aspects of attunement and synchrony, which Ruth Feldman in Israel talks about, how the first 6 months are the crucial time to lay that pattern down so that psychopathological processes don't continue for life. So if the baby's anxiety is not transformed through therapeutic interventions, a caregiver's regular non-responsiveness involving leaving the infant to cry has deleterious effect on the physical, emotional, cognitive being during the time in NICU, but long-term, all researched now. I think I'm going to stop.